Hey friends, my name is Allison Steele, and you're listening to Unravel with Allison. Unravel with Allison is a show where I take a concept that's got me in knots, and we unravel it together. Thanks for being here.
Hey, I could do that. When I say that to myself, I know that I'm inspired. And it's not discounting another's work, like saying that it's so simple, even I could do it, but actually that it's so complex that I want to turn and I want to try it. I can do hard things, and I like to. I like to be challenged, and I love how it feels to execute. I'm constantly inspired by other people, and I usually don't know what to do with that energy. So instead of messing with the energy, I turn into the system. Our neurons are the ticket to observation and awareness. They are our feelings. They are our reality, flat out. An action triggers our awareness, and our system attempts to assign it a why or a what for, to give an intention behind it. These are our mirror neurons. In the search of why and what for, the mirror neurons premonate the future action, which has yet to occur. We anticipate. We create premonitions. In 1998, there was an fMRI study where these volunteers were exposed to hand gestures. And some of the hand gestures were provided with context. Some of them were provided without context. So the study looks at the person who was exposed to the hand gestures in their brain, what happens when they have that underlying knowledge, when they have the contextual information, what goes on in their brain. The study demonstrated that the actions embedded in context yielded selective activation of the mirror neuron system, indicating that the mirror neuron areas in attention to action understanding also mediate the understanding of another's intentions. So when the context is there, the brain sorts it out quicker in alignment with the intention. Mirror neurons are all about action recognition. It's like your responses to actions that are thought to make the observer feel what it feels like to move in the observed way. Basically, if you understand what's going on, you can anticipate it appropriately. And that's just mirror neurons. Just because we have them doesn't mean they're always in use, though. They trigger at different times, affecting different parts of your body based on your perception. So I imitate a lot. And imitation is like where these mirror neurons are firing off. When I watch somebody take a bite of a lemon or eat a warhead candy, my mouth will start to water. And I taste nothing, but I've experienced that experience before. And upon witnessing it, I experience the response as if I'm the one doing the action. Or when you feed a baby, you move your mouth in the ways that you need them to move their mouth. It's like reverse mirror neurons. Like I'm not setting an example intentionally, but it's just how we're programmed to grow and teach. We act onto them what we want mirrored back. It's so funny how unintentional it is when we're doing it by accident, just trying to like, you need to eat to stay alive kind of thing. Like sit down and open your mouth and like, it's funny, we do the airplane, whatever. But it's all like, you're watching me. This is how you learn. And then when the kids get a little bit older, it's like, I don't know. I always have this argument where people, if you were told when you were a kid that you would grow up to be a lawyer because you're good at arguing, or because you have a comeback for everything, or you have a new perspective on something. I just read a meme recently that was like, that was the adult's way of calling you a bitch. And I think it's hilarious. But also, yeah, it's like you're arguing just for the sake of arguing. That's what it seems like as an adult. Like, why won't you just listen to me? Like, you know what this is. Like, this is how we do this. Quit arguing. It's gonna just be this. But from the kid's perspective, a lot of the time the tone comes from not understanding, not from being sass mouth, but because, I don't know, if you're ever told you're supposed to be a lawyer, maybe the people around you have too many rules that overlap and don't make sense. So when you try to sort it out, it comes off as combative because you aren't listening. Like you aren't. You're trying to understand, but you don't know how to navigate those conversations properly yet. And it's like, well, if this is this and why is that that? The question's not the problem. It's that the action is supposed to happen. So when you're questioning it rather than doing the action, that's a problem in like the adult child perspective. But from the child's perspective, it's like you're not arguing, you're not causing trouble just to cause trouble, you're not pushing buttons. It's like there's a lot of rules here, what's actually happening. But this is why things like science and medicine and healthcare and educational systems kind of suck, because they're built on these little niche likelihoods, but are accepted on a broad platform as like a constant truth. And it doesn't work when you actually mix it all together, because it's not supposed to. Neurologically and psychologically speaking, we are all extremely empathetic and extremely narcissistic by nature, by mirror neurons alone. Our bodies exist to keep us alive, and they want to do it. It listens to you constantly and tries to give you everything that you want. But if you compartmentalize and niche everything to pieces to have what you need just so that nothing but the specific image in your mind will be accepted as success, you're doing just as much harm as these like big systems and corporations, but internally. So I had migraine headaches, and they started when I was in 3rd grade, along with some of my superpowers. I had a teacher that was just a really powerful woman, and I was very intimidated by her, but I also cared about being successful. I wanted her to like me. Not because I wanted her to like me, but I wanted to do well across the board. And that was the biggest challenge for me to do well, was her class. I hadn't experienced anything like what she had to offer us. She had the highest standards and the shortest fused, and I liked her. And I'm very impressed with powerful women, and I want to be a part of everything that they're creating. But it's getting over that part where I'm so intimidated that has really held me back in the past. I'm not taking that path anymore. Anyway, in her class, I would sit down as the student and I would speak with her, not in like a discussion or a conversation, but when she was teaching a lesson to the class or when she was having a discussion with another student, I would move my lips to her words as if I knew the script. And I didn't understand what was going on or why, but it's happened a lot in my life since then with other people, but she was the first person that I ever did this with. And she had no idea that I was even doing it. And it didn't feel like a superpower. It just felt like another weird thing that I did. And most of the weird stuff I did got attention, and that usually didn't feel good or kept the stuff that I could quiet. And that was like my little magic of childhood that I've been trying to revisit over the past few years, is this weird, quiet little games that I'd play with myself to, reanimate myself differently. And diving into human design a little bit, I think that we are all the things, but the chart offers the primary programming. Even if your chart says you're a projector, you are still a manifester, still a generator, still a reflector on a daily basis. But in doing each, there's an energetic aura to represent how each state interacts with its surroundings. So the manifester is like when you're the light or you're the beacon or you're the tower emitting the signal, and it comes within and radiates outward. The manifester is influencing the surroundings. It's a torch in the dark. And the generators are like, it's like a hamster on the wheel generating electricity, but instead like the wheel runs around you just by existing. So it's like the field around you here is kind of like a donut, like a toroidal field, but you're the donut hole. So it just is like in constant motion around you in all directions and cycling through you. The reflector aura is repelling, like they're in their own bubble, reflecting within the bubble, not participating outside of the bubble, and actually repelling energy around the bubble to protect the sanctity of the bubble. So if you've ever been like, ooh, you're in a mood today, when somebody just walks by, you feel like you can tell that they're in a bad mood even when they don't say anything. It's like your generator field acknowledging their reflector field. It actually says nothing about how that person feels about you. It's an awareness of their energetic state from your energetic state. And that's why the ego gets in the way here, because the system is completely energetic, lacking meaning, kind of. It's just operating. But we assign meaning where it doesn't belong, and it gunks it all up. And finally, the projector aura. It's like a movie projector. At one base point is amplified and directed outward. But energetically, I kind of feel it like a fan, like filtering the energy and blasting it outward. So it's like a teacher in front of the room, literally verbally projecting the content to the class. Her aura is doing the same, amplified with her intention. So the ideal mode to learn things definitely would be generator mode, bringing it in, letting it saturate, participating with it, and expressing it. That is how we learn. And as a student in public school, I know that I have the capacity to act as a generator and that I am expected to. But I was also very fussy in class unless I played these little games and operated a little bit differently. Trying to keep the technical pieces to a minimum here, we have a chart and a body graph with 9 centers that represent our physical body. Your centers can be open or defined. Your defined centers operate differently than the open centers. I don't really understand the defined centers yet. As I understand it today, it's supposed to be like a constant expression of that center, and there are lower and higher expressions. I'm trying to explore what all this means right now. I have 2 out of 9 centers defined. The root center, which is like core primal energy, about like stability, all that kind of stuff. And my solar plexus is defined, which is all about willpower. And those 2 things I have battled with for most of my life and felt defeated by constantly. So I know that those are like pushes to explore those things, but I've always been like, okay, I'm just going to restart. And I don't know, I just keep falling on my face and I'm like, okay, it's time to do something else. I still have more to explore in the defined areas and what it feels like to actually understand and embrace what they have to offer in higher expressions. But the open centers, those are where you pick up energy. I have 7 of those. I understand my open centers because they insist on connection. I can feel in my body when I make a sacral connection with somebody, and it's exciting, and you lean into it and you have butterflies. And I've had 2 major heart connections that were during literal hugs with our hearts in close proximity. And one felt like a vortex in my heart, like a literal opening, but it was the safest and calmest I've ever felt and a peaceful, good moment. And the second time was not peaceful at all. It was high intensity all around us. When it happened, I didn't feel it on my end, but I knew what he was talking about when he felt it on his end. I had access to that energy in my open heart center, and it significantly impressed his heart center to the point where he was like, what kind of voodoo did you do? Because he's at 99%, and I leveled him out right away back into the person he is and not who he's expected to be. And if you start to pay attention to your body in these different ways, like you'll notice the dramatic stuff, but when you start to feel into the nuance, everything starts to amplify a little bit more for you to notice it now that you're paying attention. All of this to say, the connection matters because it's how you're operating. It's how to take in and project as we create and develop our reality. The energy shared and surrounding us in the air, on your couch, in the car, everywhere, anywhere you can be. There's an energetic relationship established between you and your surroundings. And the energy that creates all things, can you imagine the pressure of that system to insist on exactness for our sanity? Like I was raised thinking that ancient cultures were like simpletons. Like you think that a volcano is going to erupt because God is mad? Okay. Doing a rain dance? All right. Like I could really understand that they didn't know math and science, and that's the best that they could come up with. Now I see a system of consistency that can overload and really need to release some pressure or like stir up a hurricane. So I don't know what's real, but science comes from the observation of reality. So I think it's still important to acknowledge your observed reality over established science. But in my class, this teacher is projecting, teaching the class, and I'm able to sync my words with her lips. I move my lips and speak the words as she's speaking at the same time. How is this possible? A literal projector, a light will project through a lens, magnifying and focusing the image onto the desired surface, creating a larger representation of the content displayed. I imagine this as like literally magnifying a mirror neuron. So as people, I tapped into what she was bringing in before I ran it through my system. So I tapped into her source energy. I could feel through her lens. I could sync with her lens. I established her as the source and projected alongside her without letting it filter through mine first, without legitimate knowledge of the content. The VCR doesn't know what's appropriate. It just plays the tape. And that's how I felt, like I was playing the tape. I just felt like I was being a kid, not paying attention to the right stuff, but still paying attention in my own special way. But like, I'm convinced that I was bottling up a lot of energy that needed to be expressed. I had energy within with nowhere to go. And this is how I knew to do it while sitting in a seat. But I wasn't learning the right stuff. And I was tapping into knowledge beyond my wisdom. And I didn't know where to bounce that off of. And as a kid, I didn't have the awareness to understand any of that was going on. But I remember what it felt like to be in that seat, to be in those moments. I remember the connection through words beyond words. So when I had to focus because I wasn't learning anything, the energy spent focusing was not integrating the information. And I struggled with myself trying to be a perfectionist. And the trade-off here was migraine headaches. And that year I started like doing some work in the hallway or sectioning myself off because it's like the lights are too loud. Or if somebody scooches their chair or taps a pencil, I would be in tears from the pain. We spent years trying to figure out how to fix the problem and why it was happening. And it all got fixed when I stopped worrying about it. I had a migraine for basically 2 years and it finally went away when I started college and I moved into my dorm and I wasn't really having a good time. And even though I was pretty miserable, I didn't tell anybody knew about my headaches. And the people that would ask me about my headaches that knew about them, I asked them to stop checking in on me. I had nothing new to say. And I was tired of the discussion. It's time to talk about something else. But I was exploring the campus and I was walking outside. I was walking the halls of all the buildings, sitting in the grass to do homework, riding the bus and hopping off in an unfamiliar area just to explore it. And I also wanted to feel better and I acknowledged that part about it every day too. Not that this is bad and it hurts, but this is fun and this feels good. I stopped paying attention to the pain and the suffering, even though it did still exist, but I focused instead on what I could still do. And I woke up one day and it wasn't there. I stopped trying to figure out why, thinking that if I knew why, we could resolve it. But this isn't algebra and there is no solving for why. I can solve the issue without the unknown variable. This week I was in a virtual hangout Zoom meeting thing where this astrology expert just dropped some knowledge on us about this Pluto transit. Basically, Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008, and though it's passed through to Aquarius, it's retrograding back to Capricorn from September 1st to November 19th. And Pluto illuminates the shadow and offers like transformational determination. Pluto is the revolution. And Capricorn is all about authority and responsibility and solitude. So I just went through a bunch of clothes and I tried them on to see how they fit. And then I put them in a pile to either keep or to give away. And that's how Pluto and Capricorn works. Try it on, test it out, change your mind, move on. But at the time, especially if you're dramatically revolutionizing, it's like a constant, not this, not quite. And it might feel like nothing is exactly tailored for you. But that's where the synchronicities come in to try to boost you up. They keep your power alive from within you to keep going, reminding you about the stuff that you love, not because fulfillment is waiting just around the corner, but because your body and the universe and everything wants and needs you here with joy and niceness and vitality. I can find a lot of crummy, ugly synchronicities to justify what I see just as easily as I can see the good stuff. So to revolutionize is not to decide good and bad and move on, but it's actually to feel nice and worthy of all of it, and in a space where you're welcome to choose your preference. My happy and exciting synchronicities are based on stuff that I'm either completely indifferent about or stuff that I absolutely love. They don't spark anymore when they're grimy. I haven't allowed ugliness to enlighten me. I don't want to play with that anymore. So it doesn't try to anymore. But when I seek out what feels nice, I lean towards kindness. And not just being nice to people, like being kind to each other is a major part of it, but it's like kindness in those are my kind of people. That kind is kin. It's seeing family and familiarity in strangers and acquaintances. And that's kind of how we develop our character and revolutionize our authority. It syncs your niceties. Those are your synchronicities. So decide more is nice and worthy of being loved, and you'll get more synchronicities. But they're not a way out, they're an inward expression. But she gave us this little golden nugget that perfectly encouraged my Pluto Capricorn experience, and that is, I can do hard things. So as we move back into that energy from September through mid-November, we're going to face the transformative shadow of our inner authority and our collective outer authority. So I'm going to continue reminding myself, and I encourage you to also, not only can I do hard things, but I'm also better because of it. And on the other side in mid-November, when Pluto returns to Aquarius, and that is all about liberation, humanity, uniqueness, and community, we're more than ready to address those shadows. So bring it on. But in the meantime, instead of anticipating hardship through the transit, I'm looking at it like the last shower on a vacation. Like everything's packed, you're just about done, you're going to head home, but you need to do one last rinse before you get on the plane. Remove the stuff from the night before, wash off your hand stamps, check for ticks, go home. From Psychology Today, a synchronicity is defined as a phenomenon in which people interpret two separate, seemingly unrelated experiences as being meaningfully intertwined, even though there's no evidence that one led to the other, or that the two events are linked in any other casual way. Though many people perceive signs or spiritual meaning in synchronistic events, most scientists believe that such events are more likely coincidences that only seem meaningful due to aspects of human thinking, such as confirmation bias. And I'm not even going to address that. I'm just going to tell you about last weekend. We had a production on Sunday, and I had a little part acting, but I was an assistant director on a 3-camera shoot for a short film, and confidently agreed to all of this, feeling like comfortable and excited to do it. And even though acting previously would have sent me into a tizzy, I was excited to do all of this. So we had this great idea, and every little bit that fell through ended up working out perfectly. Basically, everything was great. Building up to it, though, the night before, I'd finished my last episode and had it set to release early on Sunday morning. So while doing the artwork for it, I chose Rosie the Riveter because it's time to roll up my sleeves and do what needs to be done. And I'm not here to promote or diss factory work, but that was not the vibe I was going for. It is saying to myself, I can do hard things. And putting that image on it makes it feel less daunting and a little more badass. So on the day of, I decided to curl my hair while I was getting ready to leave. And I work my way from the bottom of my hair to the top. So I keep the top hair sectioned off while I'm working on the lower layers. And I section it off by doing a little ponytail at the top of my forehead. But when the hair is too long, I don't pull the last wrap all the way through. It's more just like a little bun instead of a ponytail on my eyeballs. So that day I was playing with the extra hair that sticks out of the bottom and made this little weirdo forehead bangs. And I sectioned them out, was playing with them, and they were super short. But I took a picture of him to send to Siegel. He was a director on the shoot, and I was going to send it to him hey, I cut my bangs too short, which was, I thought, a funny joke given the behavior of women my age in emotional turmoil. There is an urge to cut your bangs or dye your hair. So I looked at the picture and was actually, that's kind of cute. So I just deleted it and moved on with my life and finished my hair. When I finally got on set, our gal Mal was handling special effects. And I was really looking forward to meeting Mal. I cannot even express it. She's done some super cool stuff, and we were really fortunate to be working together. So I got to sit and watch her process throughout the day. I loved every second of that. And there was another woman there. Okay, before I even get into all of that, I've just been intimidated by women, and I'm deciding not to do that anymore. I'm approaching them as equals. And typically I would see a woman who is respected by her peers and trust that they have an authority over me or how their group sees me, because I understand the influence of a woman's opinion. And I feared the opinions of others. And I never actually held my opinions in high regard. I never felt authoritative or felt that my opinion mattered or even made a difference. So instead of letting my character speak for itself, I stayed small and quiet so I wouldn't be left out if someone didn't like me. I was just along for the ride. So that's not working for me anymore. I'm doing character first and not even acknowledging the fear that only exists if I create it. So both women who were at the shoot were extremely enjoyable, and I'm happy to have met and shared that experience with both of them. And they each have the cutest, shortest little bangs, like the one that I pretended to have while I was getting ready going out that day. And Mal had a Rosie the Riveter tattoo. And you can call it coincidence, but I think this is projection. And this is how we play with ourselves and anticipate playfulness and powerfulness and creation with others. And it all mixes together in this little soup that spans across time and space. It already exists before it's experienced in actuality. It's all mixed together. This summer, I heard about the blue ghost fireflies. They're synchronous fireflies that are in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. And they're the only species in America that can synchronize their flashing light patterns. So basically, it's like a Christmas light show with bugs. And there's it's cool to visually see that there's a web that connects everything that we can't actually see. The nature of our reality is so simple, and we bog it down with these complexities. And there are communications and happenings across the time and space right in front of us. And all of this is meant to be experienced with gratitude. It's meant to be developed with joy. And we are creating so much more than we could ever imagine. And I just think that the projector in me has a better visual for these things because I see so much overlap by taking in the surrounding energy and acknowledging how I understand the expression that there's so many things happening at one time. And we confuse the heck out of ourselves if you try to rationalize it. But also, like I mentioned before, I'm not sure. I don't know if any thought that I have is original. The things that I consider are delivered to me. And I assume that I'm asking original questions and that I'm just vibing with the universe enough to get answers or get results delivered to me. But another way to see it is that the universe has plans and uses me to facilitate those plans by sparking me when it's my turn to be a part of the symphony, just like these little fireflies. And instead of me thinking that my ideas and considerations are original and come to fruition, maybe that seed was planted and the rest of it's still true. That I'm like initiated in and doing my part, and I think it's my idea, right? So I started paying close attentions to my initial reactions to things, my neurodivergency, the stuff that just happens, and to see what's me and what's programming. Because I joke that I'm a sleeper agent. Certain things will grab my attention and elicit a response without my intent. So like 2 of my uncles have been driving for UPS for as early as I can remember. And when I would visit those areas, I would always look at the UPS driver to see if it was my uncle. But then 7 years ago, I moved very close to one of my uncle's routes. So anytime that I was driving near my home and saw a UPS truck, I would look up to see if it's my uncle, same way I did when I was little. But now the problem is that if I'm in Ohio or if I'm in Texas or wherever I am, if I see a UPS truck, I'm looking at the driver. It just happens now. I'm a sleeper agent for UPS. And recently my daughter wanted to watch SpongeBob. And when I was in the middle of working on other stuff and it was playing in the background, I was reciting the entire dialogue just as dramatically as they were doing on TV. I'm a SpongeBob sleeper agent. When my power went out for 24 hours, we were either asleep or gone for most of the time, but while I was home, every single room I walked into, flipping the light switch. There are just so many behaviors that are embedded in us, and when something new comes in, like I was talking to my stepdad recently about being triggered by peaches. So like in years past, if we were talking about peaches, usually the song would pop in our head from the presidents of the United States of America. Millions of peaches. And it's just like something that would fire off in our head when someone would talk about peaches. But since we've seen the Super Mario Brothers movie, he was just playing the song Peaches from Jack Black when he's like Bowser at the piano and stuff. He started playing the song. I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody in my family is going to hate you for the next week because it's going to be in my head. This is the new Peach trigger. When peaches come in, this is the song in my head now, is Jack Black. That's the peach response. So what is original and what is resurfacing and what is mine because I wanted it and what was delivered on behalf of a greater mission? And do I believe in the greater mission? And do I even know what it is? Do we honor this unknowable or do we submit to it? I have no idea. But if you can step back and see an energetic representation of this little play of life and remove fear entirely and trust your instincts and acknowledge the source and redirect the energy, can you do that? And I've tried it. Earlier this year before my trip, we had a junk removal truck back into our Toyota Matrix. And I thought that that was a very loud message. I looked at the universe trying to hold me back from my trip, giving me every excuse to opt out and reasons to stay home. And I said, no, thank you. This is happening. No junk in my Matrix. Stop it. I'm not letting this one bring me down. There's universal resistance, but I didn't let it take me to the previous comfort cycle. It was time to do something else. More recently, I went to a bar that I've known about ever since I was little, but I've never actually been there. And I always actually thought it was kind of trashy and a little rough, but never had a desire to go there. And I've never been invited until recently for a disco night. And the image in my head of this place did not coincide with a disco night. So I'm like up for it, excited to go there. And we first got there, walked in and settled in. And I'm like, okay, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And this is pretty cool. And we stepped outside for my buddy to smoke a cigarette. And there's like a little commotion going on. And these two dudes are getting heated out front. Somebody made a comment about a motorcycle, and then it like stemmed into this weird hostility. So I just looked at my buddy like, all right, we're just stepping away from the crazy. We're not going to participate with it. But so we really paid it no mind until the guy with his back toward us started reaching behind his back. And the other guy yelled out something about how he's not afraid of whatever he's holding back there. And flat out, I just don't mess with guns. This is exactly what I thought the place was like. So we walked over to my van, around the corner, safely away from the commotion. I was disappointed thinking about how much I was really looking forward to this evening. And I guess my assumptions about the place were correct. And I looked at my friend who was also like looking forward to that evening. And he's like, I've never seen anything like this here. And there was like an energetic wave of relief because I was like, oh, that means it's almost over because I built this and brought this energy here. Like I've thought that every time I've passed the building. So it's just off-gassing and letting off this steam. Nothing bad is going to happen. And if we wait here for a few more minutes, it's all just going to go away. And I made it up as I said it out loud, but it all played out just like that. And we had a fun evening. When we heard the motorcycle drive off, we're like, okay, it just needed to fizzle. So on the surface, like I'm not a person that you'd choose for your survival team. During our shoot last weekend, I set up a light box and I plugged it in, but I couldn't figure out how to turn it on. Like there's usually a switch or a toggle or something. I couldn't find anything. And I'm looking all over, calling somebody over to take a look at it. And somebody else walks over and just reaches in and screws in the light bulb, which immediately it turned on. So I don't always have common sense with stuff like that, but I have commonality with my sensory information. And that comes from exploring human design and doing these little check-ins with my body where I can pretty much always be stable in unstable situations. And I've spent so much time in my body with my energy that discussing what is happening and how, that mostly I can trust the energy more than anything else. I can feel where it's coming from, and I can feel that it's like the beauty of the open centers and synchronicities, because synchronicities feel like they are tailor-made for us. But what actually happens when you experience them? Because most of the time we can notice when we feel bad, but do you ever pause to notice when you feel good and what that actually feels like? My kids are still young enough to have fun doing like a glare flare. So like if I have my phone out and the light's shining on it and there's a light that reflects off of it onto the wall, they'll chase it around just like cats with laser pointers. And they're giddy and excited and screaming and laughing while trying to catch it. All of that bottled up inside is how synchronicities felt to me. They were so exciting, and I felt like I was so close to getting it. But getting it was never the point. Synchronicities' root words are Greek SYN, syn, meaning together, and chronos for time. It is together in time. It is a then that appears here. And whether it's a past then or a future then, it usually starts while you're doing something else and then appears later where you can correlate it. You're manifesting it along the way, or it's being delivered to you there. I don't really know. But there's a before and after, but it's all a during, if that makes sense. Our bodies are taking in every bit of sensory detail that you could imagine in the singular moment. What you can see and hear and feel and taste and smell. And those are just your initial impressions. There's so much extra happening in the space and time in between. So I like to think that our synchronicities are pushing us to a higher vibration, but not intended to change our direction. Like it's something that lights us up to give us a pulse to keep going, to keep persevering. Our bodies want us to have that expression, and our bodies want to give us that pulse. The universe offers it everywhere. And I think it's because of the ego. I assign meaning to more things. I see how the ego is a problem in certain areas when we're identifying relationships with other people and how like you can sense that somebody's in a bad mood. Maybe that's not the case. That's when the ego starts to get murky. But to let it be the driver and to give it what it likes and to let it explore what it likes, I decided that I just liked so many more things. I was doing the blanket statement of better instead of saying, we need to fix this small that, we need to fix this, we need to fix that, we need to solve this, we need to, humanity depends on this, or the election's going to change that. It's so niche. It's too small. To only care about a few little things in life and not be excited by anything, it's too small and it's too niche. If you want to solve those little problems, figure out why and let that be your blanket statement instead of the middle piece. The middle piece where you solve for why, so what? So what can happen next? How are you going to feel in that next space? When the thing you want done is done, that's what you're really rooting for. You're not rooting for that specific thing to come out the way you want it to. You're rooting for how you're going to feel. That's your premonition. You're already putting that in there. You're already anticipating that you're going to feel one way when one thing happens. So you're plotting your path. So blanket that with an easier statement. And that I can do this, and this is good for me, and this is better, and ooh, I like that. And collect more of those like emotional charms so you can be charmed more often by yourself, because it's filtering out the things that make you happy and that will light you up. Find more stuff that you like, and the world will sync it together over time and space. But again, the message is not the point. The meaning is not the point. There isn't salvation just around the corner because you have synchronicities. But it's that part of you that wants to keep you happy. And that's how the energy systems work. They open and amplify and they participate. There's so much more happening than we could ever possibly understand in this moment. Take some time to feel through what your system has to offer and decriminalize your nervous system because it's just trying to love you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unravel with Allison. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Unravel with Allison. Follow, subscribe, keep in touch, and stay up to date on new episodes. If you'd like to support the show, start with the algorithm. Rates and reviews always help to spread the message. Thank you for being here, and I'll catch you next week.